What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another stellar week of what do we call this? Beyond the Message, our podcast.
We're off to a great start.
We're off to a great start. Well, I've got Pastor Mike with me today. No introduction, and his lovely sister. Give it up for Heather, everybody.
Woo!
We're clapping. We're clapping. Heather's loving being on the podcast. So, well, guys, we had a really interesting week this week. I would love to unpack it for a little bit. I think, and Heather, we'll get your take on it as well, because Heather's the one that I walk up the steps after I preach all 4 times, and she's kind of the one that gets to pick the message that gets on the website. And typically, she's got a very strong opinion as to which one was better. And sometimes we clash. I'm like, I like that one. She goes, no, Brent, you didn't do great on that one. You need to take that one. So this week, we're in a series called The Series That Made Us, and I really kind of took an about face with what we had been doing from the beginning of the series through Mother's Day, more of a collective look at what is the greatest concern for our church today. And so I used the word comfort. Mm-hmm. And so Mike, obviously you've been around here for a long time. You know I've been around that angle a lot. I always frame it in lots of different ways. I want us to stay on the ragged edge of faith. We can't get comfortable. If we get comfortable, you grow or you die. And what was your original take on that? What did you sense from that? Did you have any conversation online? I know we had somebody accept Christ this week. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. What's your first take on this week?
It's actually something I wanted to ask you about. I tried to kind of address after the service, and admittedly probably did a poor job at it. But when you brought out Luke 9, okay, that we're deny ourselves, take up our cross, follow Christ. Mm-hmm. One interesting thing about kind of watching things real time online is as people chime in and comments, and typically they are great, but sometimes people ask questions too as they're trying to process through this. And so how would you kind of explain that balance in our culture specifically in terms of it's okay to enjoy some things in life. It's okay to have a recliner per se in your living room and to sit down every now and then and all. But that idea of, like you said, rest is not spiritual laziness either. So it's that willingness to say, God, whatever you have for me, I will do. Whatever you want from me, I will follow you. But yet still not feel guilty that, hey, God has blessed us and we are very fortunate and that we do get to take those moments as well.
I think I was pretty candid, but, I didn't really get into that specifically, but I struggle to maintain that balance. Mm-hmm. I think the older, and the way I framed it, the older I get, the more I'm sucked into that lazy boy at home. Mm-hmm. You want to go home and you just want to chill, and you do think of, what does this really look like in our faith? And it's the American Christian idea. What we've been sold is just not biblical in a lot of ways.
Right.
Take up their cross and deny themselves and follow me. And I kind of framed it with, for me, I feel like today people would say, how do we explain that verse? Is people are willing to pay a high price for what they value. And Jesus is like, what are you valuing here? And a cross is anything but comfortable.
Right.
And so, I don't want to necessarily go live in a tent and just, I think we can use that and take the absurd extreme, but to go home, to relax, to rest, but always wake up every day on the ragged edge of your faith. Always wake up every day and just basically ask that Colossians 4 prayer. God, have doors open. Mm-hmm. As a church, always be willing to go. We're honestly risking a lot right now to keep pushing forward. Yeah. We don't need to do that. We can just go, we're comfortable, we're good, everything's paid for, let's just everything. That's how I would balance that, is even celebrating 30 years of our church, let's challenge us as a church to keep taking steps. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? And you got to challenge yourself every day. I think that is a fight. And that's why you could almost feel people are like, well, that's not the greatest threat to church is comfort. It's sin. It's a lot of things, but comfort is a huge threat.
Because I think it's one of those where, like you said, we have to stay on the edge of our seat. We have to be willing. Is the way I tried to explain it is, don't feel guilty that God has blessed you, perhaps, but at the same time, like you said, don't allow rest to become spiritual laziness and go, you know what? Life is good. And next thing you know, we're focused in on self. We're focused inward as opposed to out. And that's the way I try to look at it.
Well, I grew up in church, so I've done a really long study of church history, especially churches. And I say it all the time to our staff. I'm like, there's reasons churches plateau and die. And it's not because, let's plateau and die.
Right.
It's comfort.
Yeah.
They get comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, we're not willing to do anything anymore. Just like the conversation I had with the old guy. Like, why are we doing anything? We're good. Why would we do any of that? And I'm like, just to keep us on the ragged edge of faith. Heather, we're stopping you from talking. Please.
You could see it. She's
You actually,
ready.
what did you say to me this week? Because it was behind the scenes. I was walking down the hall after the services, and we were talking about which service to choose. And you're like, you didn't bring something up. Do you remember that? What was?
I thought you didn't say in the second service that when you threw the seed pack accidentally at the lady, that you gave her that Robert Tino painting so that she wouldn't sue us. I was like, maybe we
I was
shouldn't
throwing
use that
seeds. And that's how weird it is behind the scenes. We're like, which one do we use? Because most of the time, one service rises to the top and like, okay, the energy was there. I maybe was more articulate than the other one, but I think they both were close this week, except for that. And that was Heather's like, well, we don't want to put that one on because, and I'm like, it is what it is. I mean, I hope everybody got this week that comfort is more than just our spiritual life. It's in everything. It's marriage, it's business, it's all of that. And I do think ultimately the balance, Mike, and I go back to that because I could kind of feel it in the crowd. It's like, well, wait a minute. I don't want to be here listening to this. I want comfort. I want peace. I want rest. And there's aspects of our Christian faith that's all we lean on.
Right.
But it can't be an excuse for spiritual laziness. And I think ultimately that's not what I was after, resting in Christ when it comes to our dark anxieties. But it's like being comfortable enough to not do anything about making a difference for Christ. Because following Christ, and I've used all the verses, followers fish.
Yeah.
Followers fish. What was your take on it? What did you get out of the week? What is one thing that you like stuck with you? I'll throw you under the bus and put you on the spot.
Well, thanks. Appreciate that.
You got anything that was secret? I do this to my kids all the time, and they're used to it by now. They have something pre-worked up in their head that they tell me, and they know that's kind of what I want them to say. So,
Well, I mean, just this thought of where you said it's about being comfortably uncomfortable. And I think that is important to walk away with because it's like what you guys are talking about with the mindset of if you're comfortable, you're satisfied with where you are and you're not allowing God to step up and show up in other ways. It's all over the Bible. Like when they were getting comfortable, that's when they started relying on their own resources and started saying, look what we did. And no, it's look what God did.
and it's funny because I think that's all we do anymore is chase comfort.
Yeah.
Even Christian, like I just. You can hear it in people. They come to church. Man, I needed that song. I gotta worship in that. I need a message that's gonna basically go right at my anxiety. When I preach a message like that, everything lights up. Email lights up. Oh, I needed it. But it was interesting this week of how many people, older people in particular, walked out of church crying. Men, I needed that. I needed this message because I think that's the fight. It's all about comfort, and we're very much a society that does not choose to wake up and go, hey, let's go chase suffering.
Absolutely.
But that's the great thing about, when you chase suffering, you grow. And I did cryptic that. Y'all saw that on Facebook this week, right? I put that in between Wednesday and Saturday. The comfort zone, man, is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there.
Yeah.
And I just think people, I think it is all over Scripture. You're right, Heather. But we don't look toward that. We're looking, God is a God of comfort. He's a God of refuge. He's a God of peace because we struggle with that. And yet as a society, how much more comfortable, people won't say it, but how much more comfortable can we possibly get?
And there is really dangers in that, comfortable, because when you are comfortable, you're not looking for the things that God is blessing you with. You're not looking for the things that God can grow you in because you're just satisfied with where you're at. And that was a lot of the scripture that you read all throughout the Bible, even with the Israelites. They're just happy where they were when they finally got into the promised land. And that's when things really started going bad. They forgot God.
I got home and Giovanna was on. She listened to the message. She's like, "Whoa, that was a good one." And then she looked at me and she goes, "You know what, Brent? I'm going to pray that God makes you very uncomfortable." I'm like,
That's not nice.
Oh, boy.
I'm like, but that should be our prayer.
Yeah.
That's our prayer. And I think as a church, that's what I was after. I think if you've been around our church, I'm going to say this type of message because it really bothers me when we get comfortable. I don't like it. Giovanna has told me my whole life, you like it when we're going Mach 2 and stuff's happening, lives are being changed. If we get into, we equate ourselves as a staff as big wave riders. We wait for those big waves. And when we're just paddling, waiting on a set, I get antsy.
Well, and I think too, the other danger, and Heather alluded to just a second ago, is the more you chase comfort in your life, the easier it is to get negative too.
Yes.
Is you miss out on God's blessings. You miss out on the wins because it's never enough. And so when our eyes are focused in on especially the tangible comforts of life, the literal lazy boy or the plush mattress or, all the things that we're willing to spend money on, when we chasing those things, it's easy to go, well, it's just not enough. It's not as good as this could be. It's not this, it's not that. But instead, if we go, you know what? It's like, I'm going to choose to have a positive attitude. I'm going to choose to look to God and say, God, you have been good to me. You have blessed me. And we lock in on that and say, God, you know what? Because I know how good you have been, because of the blessings that you have given me, and you've held nothing back from me, I'm willing to follow you and do whatever you have for me. And I think that goes to Luke 9. But I think that, like you said, I think especially in our culture, more than others, when we talk about this idea and this balance, I think we do. We either run to one extreme or the other. It's either prosperity and comfort or it's total denial. And I think for sanity and for our own well-being, for our spiritual lives, and for God to really even be able to use us, honestly, there has to be a balance, because like you've used the phrase many times, if you become the granola Christian and you are, you're a fruit flake and nut and you are odd for God and all those things, and you are some extreme example of, well, I can't have nice things, I can't enjoy anything, then you're not also relatable.
You guys talk about the lazy boy, okay? And that's your idea, but I laugh.
Or girl.
Okay, or girl, sorry. But my thing is, I laughed because just the other day I was thinking about how we are so comfortable that we will, like you said, you get into a complaining mode. The laundry. How many of y'all hate doing laundry? And yet we literally have a machine that we put the clothes in, it washes it for us, we take clothes out, we put it in the dryer, it dries it, and then all you're doing is folding it and putting it away.
You need to talk to my wife. Just tell her, what do you think is your problem?
I'm just saying, but I'm the same way. But you think of all, like, in the history of all of that, the process was they went down, had to walk to the water. They had to take these boards with them. They were scrubbing.
People get mad or what? We're wusses.
Yes.
All of us are. We are so pampered.
Yeah.
And yet people think life is as hard ever, and it's not, for sure. And I don't know. I just think that's the battle of our lives, the struggle, the balance. Yes. I mean, you guys will attest as a the staff. I make sure the staff is balanced. We have days off. We do everything we can. We'll take an extra day if we're working hard, because we got to be rested. If not, we're not going to really be focused and do anything. My dad, he was a different generation. And when I maybe took Friday off, or I shut the office down, and I'm like, guys, Dad, our staff needs a weekend. He's like, no, we got to work every day. And then we took that balance, and the church even grew beyond that, because we can't walk in the door fried and expect to be fresh and ready to go. So there is a balance with that. I mean, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. That's Sabbath. When are you going to rest? There's a rhythm of rest, but it's not a rhythm of always resting. Let's just rest all the time.
Yeah.
It's a rhythm of rest.
Yeah.
So if you think of it that way, one day God rested, and the other days he worked. Well, we use the same thing. The idea of, and getting uncomfortable is more of a mindset than it is something physical.
But I think you just did the beautiful distinction between the two, because comfort and rest, I feel like, is two very different things. Rest is a time that you allow God to pour back into you so that you then can go back and pour into others, where comfort is different.
And there might be seasons for people. It might not just be a day. There are people that go through dark places, and they need to actually go away and rest. We call that vacation. That, what did the equation I used to say all the time? It was divert daily, abandon annually, and withdraw weekly. Yeah. I think that's a rhythm of rest, but it can't turn into spiritual laziness.
Right.
Where a church goes through years of like, we're not going to reach people. We're good.
Right.
Why would we do anything and challenge ourselves?
Exactly.
And I think that's what I was after. I love the verse, and we can unpack it for a minute. Jesus sending us out like sheep among the wolves, and we're to be as shrewd as snakes and harmless as doves. I think that is absolutely amazing verbiage.
Yeah.
I think it was very strategic. I think, the idea of sheep is someone who loving, harmless, and I could almost feel it in the crowd. I'm like, guys, we're not really meant to be people of aggression
Yeah.
and compromise,
Yeah.
but loyalty and love. And you could almost feel people like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be aggressive and nasty, and no, we're not.
That's supposed to be one of the things that sets us apart, especially as the time goes on in the world in which we live. The more divided we get, the more aggressive the culture gets, the more we look at people as our enemy, as opposed to human beings that God loves and cares for and died for. That, hey, if we don't look at them through that lens, we have totally missed the whole point, the whole message of the gospel. And if instead of having a shouting match, if we learn to love people, and put people above ourselves, that's when we stand out. That, as you've said many times, was it D.L. Moody, the quote that, hey, that out of 100 people, that 99 will read the Christian, one will read the Bible.
Yeah.
That's just it. Is we have to be different in order for people to actually be interested in what we have to say.
I think it's also realizing the audience that you have, that you're in the room with, because if you're with other Christians, then there's different conversations that you can have, where you can have those honest conversations that somebody's doing something that they're not supposed to. But if it's somebody that does not know Jesus, has never opened their Bible, we need to realize that and be careful of the lens that we use in addressing that person. Love that person first, have a relationship with that person, grow that trust, and then you can start really trying to open that person up to Christ and what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
Be shrewd as a snake and as harmless as a dove. Be a godly, shrewd person. That's what Jesus says.
Yeah.
And the idea, I said it, just don't be naive as we walk through the world. The world has not our best intentions at heart, but really be spiritually smart. Mm-hmm. Be careful positions that you put yourself in.
Yes.
And I think ultimately, I hate to blow a good podcast with David Goggins, David Goggins was what was he? He was a Navy SEAL, super ultrathoner. But that's kind of maybe changed my tune. I think I've always been there, but changed my tune years ago when he says, wake up every day and chase suffering.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. He goes, but that's how you grow.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately the Bible spoke that way before David Goggins did. It's like, get out of your comfort zone, trust God, get on the edge of your faith. And ultimately, we're going to talk about this kind of all summer in a lot of facets. And I just think I'm there. I think our church in particular, we're in a season where we're going to have to battle being comfortable. We're too comfortable.
I was thinking of what you and the ladies just did Saturday going into this message. Because all of you, okay, so if you don't know, Heather and several ladies in our church, wife included, they did a mud run, right?
Yeah.
And it was funny because we had to drive a little over an hour and a half, almost 2 hours down there early Saturday morning. And they were all talking about how they were anxious and they were like, oh, I don't know if I have it in me.
I'm
and all this
surprised
stuff.
I honestly made it to the location because I'm pretty sure David was ready to kick me out of the car because I was so nervous.
But from everything I've heard, all of them were all, rolling through that in their head of, I don't know if I have it in me, whatever. And then afterwards, soon as you all crossed that last obstacle, hit that finish line, you were all excited, cheering each other on. But what were we all hearing as guys standing there watching this unfold is they're ready to go again for next year and they're recruiting ladies for next year.
Yep.
And it's, hey, I'm going to get it really uncomfortable, do something that I don't feel confident to do. And after I see it through and realize that I am capable of this thing, that, hey, I'm ready to challenge myself again. And it's not that you go, oh, I can do it. All of you were all the same mindset. You're like, I'm excited to do this. And I think that right there is a great image of our spiritual lives, especially when it comes to sharing our faith, because how many people are freaked out at the idea of being bold, sharing their faith, just having a conversation with somebody and saying, hey, let me tell you what God's done in my life. We are scared to death to take that step. But yet after you've done it, even if the conversation doesn't work exactly the way you're praying it's going to work out, it lights up this fire to where you go, I want to do this again and again and again.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's about being contagiously uncomfortable, and that's my prayer for us as a church. That's my prayer for me. The older I get, I do see it, and I don't say it bad, but I watched Giovanna's dad. I watched my parents as you get older. That lazy boy sucks you in. It's like that's all you want to do is sit there, and then you just reflect on the past. You get negative. It's not negative, but you get like sad, like everything's gone by you, and I'm like. And I thought, I'll never get that way. And I'm now in my mid to late, I'll be 56 here this week. And I'm like, I get home sometimes, I just want to run to that lazy boy. And you force yourself to get up. Giovanna actually gets mad at me. She's like, what are you getting up again? I'm like, yeah, because we've sat here for an hour. I got to go do something, go outside, whatever. And she's like, well, you need to sit here. I'm like, we've sat here long enough.
That's Marcella and I's conversations.
We're going to sit here all lives. And I hate it. And I'll close with this because I really do believe it's true. And I said it. I don't know if it went over people's heads. I hope it didn't. The idea of eternity is too real.
Yes.
The gospel is too important.
Yeah.
Or the gospel is too powerful. People are too important to sit in the chair. Yeah. And if we can just get that, and I knew all of us are not going to stand up and go, yes, let's go get uncomfortable, but just a few of us that stay uncomfortable. And as a mindset, just battle after it and not just go, hey, I've sat here too long. It's fine to rest, but then you got to get up and you got to move and you got to make a difference. And the churches that sit there too long, that's when they plateau and die. Yeah. They don't mean to, but it happens. And I don't want that to be said about us.
So one thing I would encourage anybody listening to this to do with what you just said, especially for those who were not in the room when we did this, because this was recent, if you were not here for the How to Share Your Faith class that Pastor Brent taught, hey, this is your homework assignment for the week. Go on the website, go on the app, pull that up. It's easy to search. Watch that, take part in that, listen to what is said. Get yourself in a place where you have some ammunition, you have some tools, and you're ready so that it's not a matter of the intimidation. It's, hey, I'm ready to step up and I'm ready to be uncomfortable. And instead of this giant canyon, it seems like to take that step, it's a much smaller obstacle to overcome to say, God, you know what? Use me.
That, just read Colossians 4. Just make that your prayer. God, today, just open up a door. And just that I might say something, live in such a way that people can see something different. Because just like Heather and the girls, when you ran that, when I was running, and you're like, man, I don't know if I can do that. And you get done, it's addicting. It's like, you know what? That fires me up way more than anything just sitting at the house. There's a challenge, and there's something innate about us. God created us that way. The rhythm of rest is there, but stay uncomfortable. Heather, you did a great job. You excited?
Thanks. I'm excited.
Do it again. Guys, next week, Memorial Day week, please be in church. It is very important weeks like that. I know it's a holiday weekend for us here in East Tennessee. It looks like the weather forecast is going to be nice and rainy, so that's probably good for church, even though that's bad for, I was like, what? Memorial Day, it's raining. We need the rain right now. But Memorial Day, we honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice that we can come and worship as we please. Love you guys. It's a great, great, great week. The summer's going to be amazing. Get after it. Stay uncomfortable. Everybody's like, ooh, I love to hear that. Stay uncomfortable. See you next week. Bye.